Today, I'm going to go over how caches work and also give you an intuitive example at the end that I think will really help. So when the CPU wants some data at some address, it will ask the cache, hey, what's the data at this address? This is kind of similar to asking who lives in 19 Main Street, Fairfield. You can think of the person as the data and the address as, well, the address. So I'm showing you a 32-bit address. It's broken down into tag, index, and offset. The index or set index is used to map to the set of the cache, while the tag tells you whether the information we want is in the cache or not. In this example, we can clearly see that the tags doesn't match. This means the data we are looking for is not in the cache. This is called a cache miss. When this happens, the cache have to retrieve data from the memory. The offset is quote-unquote ignored because the specific data we are looking for will always be in that chunk. The cache identifies which set the tag is supposed to go in and updates the tag and the data to the new data. Now we can see that the tag in set 5 is updated to match the one we were looking for earlier. This means the data we're looking for is now in the cache. So what about the offset? Well, although we retrieve the whole chunk of data into the cache, we only want to return the one that the CPU specifically asked for. The offset is used to identify which byte of data in the cache line should be returned to the CPU. Now I want to give you an analogy that I think will help you understand this. Remember our address from earlier, 19 Main Street, Fairfield? Well, what if we treat this as offset, tags, and set index? We'll have a curious mayor acting as a CPU and Colorado Information Bank acting as a cache. The information bank is like a cache in that it stores the information of who lives in which house, but can only do so for one street per city. So if the curious mayor is asking who lives in 19 Main Street, Fairfield, the information bank can just answer that because they have the documentation ready. But what if the information bank currently stores the information for Windsor Street residents for Fairfield? Well, this is like a cache miss. So the information bank would have to send a representative to the city of Fairfield and go knock on every Main Street's resident's door and ask who lives here. This is like a cache going to memory to retrieve data. After our representative compiles all the information of our residents, he can safely head back to the information bank and replace the information of residents in Fairfield. This means we would lose all information of who lives in Windsor Street, Fairfield, but will gain the information of who lives in Main Street, Fairfield. This is the same as updating the tag, which is the street name, and updating the data, which is the resident's information. So there's something I left off. What about 19, or our house number / offset? So remember how our cache retrieves a whole chunk of data from the memory. When our representative went to Fairfield, he collected the data of everybody who lives in Main Street, not just 19 Main Street. So if our curious mayor happens to ask who lives in 20 Main Street as the next request, the data would already be in the information bank, or the cache, which reduced the number of times we have to send someone to collect the information. So for 20 Main Street, Fairfield, the information is in the bank. What about 18 and 22? Of course, they're also in the bank. What about the data for 18 Windsor Street? Well, this would be different. Remember we replaced the information of all Windsor residents with our Main Street's information? Well, because we did that, we have to send our representative back to the city to survey Windsor Street again and collect that information. Like a cache miss all over again. Now, this is not everything about the cache. In the future, we will go over valid 30 bits, set associative map cache, and how many bits should tag, index, and offset bits be.